of owning a cafe and other heroic deeds by Beware the Tristero. Chapter 158. Regrets. Part 2. Skirting quickly and quietly down the corridors, his eyes still narrowed, Yagi Aizawa Shouta was torn between glaring at his would-be rescuer and trying to comfort the girl who'd been whimpering and quaking since they left the room they'd previously been trapped in.
"Where is everyone else?"
he whispered as they slowed near a corner, the brawler's head shoving around the side to make sure the coast was clear.
"You didn't really just come here by yourself, did you?"
Watching as the slightly younger man swiveled his face around to offer him a sheepish grin, the Udiri owner fought this urge to snap at the man or smack him broadly across the head as their escape resumed. I didn't want to risk, anyone else," the other finally replied, whilst they took a left and then a right, which he prayed was intentional. "Overhaul, he is crazy powerful," he furthered, his tone momentarily peppered with fear. He killed me once. I still have fucking nightmares about it, and well, I didn't want Yagi ever to face him if I could help it, I know. I've caused a big enough mess with letting this happen to you, haven't I? Allowing a quiet sigh to escape him. He similarly flinched when he thought about the young bruiser dying. He, as mad as he was, as bitter as the taste of betrayal in the back of his throat, still was. The former cage fighter had gotten under his skin and made a home for himself there. He couldn't believe that the fuss he made over the kids and Taishira was faked. There was no way that his offers to help Kimiko and Rei move, reposition, and show off huge, vibrant flower pots and beds in full bloom around their floristry for display purposes was an act. That his insistence on carrying shopping bags for Mimi-chan and her girls whenever he saw them was anything other than kindness. Plus, the way Rappa looked at his pro-mentor, well, that had to be real. Didn't it? Shit. Okay, we just gotta get through that door there, and then we should be home free, alright? Giving a quiet grunt of affirmation, Shouta had that sinking feeling he used to fight with in his youth. The feeling that hummed through his mind and whispered that things were going a little too smoothly. A little too well, because even if Rappa had plied his former cronies all but drink, there was still fuck only knew how many cameras peeking out from various hiding places. Aries' room surely had a silent alarm too, didn't it? Come on, you stupid door. There we go! Swallowing down his worries, he followed his unlikely savior through the barrier, the relief he felt at seeing another empty corridor momentarily relaxing him.
"How much further?"
he asked quietly, his arms gently readjusting the precious child he held as they continued to swiftly make their way through the maze, his mind trying to keep track of each turn.
"We're about 10 minutes out,"
Appa murmured.
"Then what? Fuck!"
Yelping, his hold on Airy tightening, the cafe owner could do nothing as the ground literally opened up beneath them, his eyes widening in horror as the lighting illuminated a good 20-foot drop. Shit! He might be able to land with only breaking his ankles if he could use the walls for leverage, but he couldn't try to grab onto anything whilst ensuring the girl he held was secured.
"Oh,
Sage! Papa!" Grunting, his free fall having stopped, Shouta had little time to get his thoughts together before something golden hard slipped around his face, legs, and torso to no doubt cocoon Airy in place, the pair of them effectively belted up with no way to escape.
"Shit's okay, sweetheart. Just tuck your face against my neck, alright? I've got you, okay?"
He breathed to her, his breath exhaling shakily until she nodded and curled further into him, whilst he strained to hear what was happening below them. Oh God. Oh no. He should have told Rappa to leave the second he opened that bloody door. Now, Rappa, that's a pretty nasty break you've got there, isn't it? It'd be a shame if someone were to damage it further now, wouldn't it? What? Fuck you, Eddie! Gah! Grimacing his keen sense of hearing, tried to detect what was happening below him. From the strange noise he'd just heard, he assumed that Harry was chronostasis, and that the former cage fighter was now completely slowed down and at their mercy. After everything Wakasama has done for you, after everything you've been allowed to have, this is how you repay him. Huffing at the sneering tone echoing in the quirk-made chasm below, Shouta continued to wriggle as much as he could, if just to distract Overhaul. The bastard probably stood over the brawler, who tried to...
I'm more disappointed than angry, really. What happened to the promise you made me, Why would you give up your strength, what you used to value more than anything, to displease me?
Who'd risked his life to...
Especially when you know how much I detest people who work for fruitless, pitifully small goals. However, don't think that I'm putting you out of your misery for any other reason than your sickness proving too far gone to cure. I do this as a kindness, really. I'm saving you from yourself.
Wait, don't kill him,
he shouted, his voice rasped in horror, as this latest twist of his waking nightmare unraveled like some poisonous barbed vine to wrap around his peace and destroy it.
Please, he was just...
You have sympathy for him? You wish for me to spare his life after he infiltrated that little group of yours, after learning that he'd been spying on you and bringing your secrets to me.
Feeling his blood boil, he grit his teeth.
Everyone is welcome at my cafe.
He spat.
Even you would have been.
He hissed, his hands gently soothing across Aries' back as much as he could.
You don't have to kill and terrify people to save the world, because that's what you want, isn't it? Deep down you want to make a difference. You want to do good, to make your boss proud, right?
He hudged what little of the child he held had told him, hopefully ringing true.
Aren't Yakuza meant to be a family? Killing one of your own, someone who isn't just a servant but a person you trusted, that's dishonorable, isn't it?
Come on! Yipping despite himself, as the wall he stuck to brought him and the girl he still held to the floor before he released them. Shouta blinked his eyes a few times and frowned at the sight that greeted him. Rappa was prostrate across the floor, his right leg clearly broken, whilst Harry loomed over him, a lethally sharp dagger in his hand, whilst Overhaul pulled himself up from the crouch he'd been in, his left hand holding a white glove he'd yet to put back on. Again.
Very well, Aizawa. If you want to make a deal with me to save his miserable life, I'll give you this favor in exchange for a favor owed.
He shrugged before inclining his head to the ivory-haired man.
In a way, this is actually fortuitous.
He hummed as the sounds of footsteps echoed from above them. Boss, we've checked everywhere. There's no police, pros, or nothing, all right? Feeling what little hope he had left fizzle out, the eatery owner dared to look up at the 7 bullets before looking back at the man who'd tried to save him and the girl, who was now hiccuping but slowly calming down, her face still pressed into his neck.
Small mercies.
Good, their leader nodded.
Tabe, Katskame, wreck the spot at the base after the underlings have moved my valuables and everyone's personal effects,
he ordered, his words causing the rookie pro to blink.
We'll move to annexes 7A, B, and C for now.
He furthered.
Mimic, make a path from the entrance this trader used to here.
He added, his golden eyes glinting in the haunting glow of the white lighting of the space he'd made.
This is a little before schedule, however. What better way to send a message as to how serious we are than letting the heroes see Redestro's muscle support firsthand?
Walking away from his partner's place of work, the bouncer on the door claiming that Kendo didn't have a shift that evening. Toyomitsu Taishiro felt the suspicions he'd been unintentionally harboring grow and sour. Something just didn't add up here. His partner had been jittery, on edge, and evasive, which was really out of character. The slightly younger man was more about oversharing than anything, so to see him fumbling over his words, thunderously stomp around and grump at the police force's suggestions as to who was behind the abduction of their community's cat dad, he was worried. Not just about the man himself, but what if the man he'd only recently given a key to his apartment was behind all of this? No, he breathed, his head shaking. Ken had been upfront about his checkered past, about his days of fighting in illegal matches for money, about some of the more questionable things he'd had to do in order to survive living in a young offenders institution after his mother died and his grandmother became too ill to support him. He wouldn't do something like this, would he? Trying to shake off his growing concern as he walked down one of the more risque parts of Musutafu's entertainment district, the pro-hero fished his phone out of his signature yellow hoodie's pocket and sighed into the warm, incredibly early morning air. It was a breach of trust, he knew, to crack his partner's phone, but if something was wrong, if the bruiser had gotten into his head that he could somehow find Shouta by himself, then... Blinking as the app that should flag up where the former brawler was, put him across town in an area that had had to be demolished and was currently being rebuilt. Taishiro frowned. What in the world could Ken be doing there? The estate was still deserted. It would be a perfect place to hide out if you were a villainous organization, wouldn't it? Shit! He was pretty sure that the wild pussycats had already scoured that part of town, but without warrants and permissions from the owners, well, without any evidence suggesting something sinister was afoot inside the buildings, then legally they could only observe the area and not investigate it thoroughly.
Ken, what the hell, man?
He breathed, his eyes narrowing. God damn it, why aren't you answering my calls? He sighed before his instincts fraying. The BMI hero began a group call with All Might Commanders Sugarame and Present Mike as he began to run through the neon-lit streets amidst a few cheering, lightly inebriated club-goers and the sounds of loud music, his expression determined yet grim. He just hoped that he was wrong, that this wasn't what it looked like, that he'd not fallen in love with a villain, let alone someone who'd come into their lives to steal and do only God knew what to a man they all owed too much to.
Fat son, I'm here. Have you found something?
Swallowing thickly, Toshinori's voice ringing desperately down the line, Taishiro grit his teeth as the police force leader and pro-teacher similarly asked for news.
I'm not sure,
he replied, his tone breathy as he picked up the pace.
Rapakendo is also missing. He's not picking up his phone, and its signal is coming from the Jakku prefecture, and I've pinned it down to the Twelnul estate, he added. Something's not right, you guys. And besides, this gives us evidence enough to properly look the place over, right?
That it does, Tsugarame replied. I'm sending 3 patrol cars now.
I'm already en route, and so Night High is going to pick up Hound Dog.
I'll try to track the big guy down, Dai. Can you tell me where the last place you saw him was? Huffing his mind replaying the conversation he'd had with Mirio and the other provisionally licensed pros, Taishiro furrowed his brows.
He left her my address to the media yesterday evening, he replied. He was heading west, Mike. Let me know when you track him down through the CCTV, will you?
Silently thanking his shisho for the ability to float, Yagi Aizawa Toshinori was the first to land at the still partially rebuilt estate, his eyes peering around the mostly dark area with a calm he didn't feel. It was 1:17. The houses were crawling with shadows, and aside from the distant sounds of some late-night traffic speeding down the highway adjacent to the collaboration of residential buildings, he could hear nothing.
I'm here, Mike,
he spoke after tapping his earpiece.
Can you see my signal?
You're coming through loud and clear, big guy. Me and Doma, I've got you pinned on the map, and we're creating a path for you to follow right now, the blonde genius replied, the sounds of his fingers flying over keyboards clacking in the background.
Thank you,
he breathed, his eyes moving to the phone he held, his brows lifting when a layout of the area materialized across the screen, a red line slinking out from the blue icon that represented him.
What did you find on the cameras?
I think Fat Gum is onto something, G-san,
his nephew replied, his voice tired but strong.
We backlooped through the timescale of him leaving the press release and found him entering a subway station, getting on and off the train, going to a 7-Eleven, and then walking towards the estate.
He furthered, his tone becoming bewildered.
He waved at certain cameras, G-san. He's also pointed in the directions he was heading. I think he was trying to lead us somewhere.
Well, he could have bloody well told us that, couldn't he, man? I'm gonna chew his ear off so hard when we get a hold of him.
Blinking, Taishiro's voice cutting back into the call, he lifted an arm to signal the man who was barreling towards him, the flash of Arai's car lights coming in and out of view as he sped towards them, his mind becoming even further conflicted. whilst he struggled to connect the dots together.
Oh, Mano, if he had anything to do with what's happened to... Erase your hand, and I promise you, I swear that... I know, my friend,
he replied, his tone an odd mix of sadness and anger.
But let's just wait and see what we're dealing with.
He breathed, his eyes sparking neon as a flash of protective rage clouded his senses and caused him to bounce upon his feet as Hound Dog leapt from his best friend's car, his muzzled nose sniffing away. If Rappa had helped in whatever the situation was, if he dared to further harm her husband in any way, then...
Okay, I picked up a scent as we drove here. I can only smell Rappa, though. The other scents around here are too old to identify. I know. He went this way. Follow me.
Then all bets were off. Finding the large disused storm drain and walking through it had been relatively easy. However, as they reached the end of the tunnel...
What? This shouldn't be here.
They found 4 definitely quirk-made passageways snaking away from the main shaft that went on to connect other drains beneath the urbanization.
Sugarame-san, you're going to want to send for the Patukas. We've found some kind of underground network beneath the estate.
Frowning, Toshinori nodded for Hound Dog to keep going, the 4 of them using their phone's lights to illuminate the eerie, echoing shafts that had been so smoothly carved into the ground, the UA counselor sniffing and selecting the tunnel to the right.
There's a lot of bleach up ahead.
The golden-maned pro hissed, his ears tearing.
And other than Rappa, I can't smell anyone or anything else, but he's definitely here.
He added through a cough before, with a growl he added,
There's blood.
Grimacing their senses, mindful of any booby traps they could encounter, they were running at speed through the passage, the sound of their footfalls thundering until...
Oh, God. Ken? Fatgum, hold on. There could be...
Wait! Don't touch him. His arms, they've been impaled.
At Marai's words, the number 1 felt the air leave his lungs as though he had been punched.
Ken, can you hear me? Hey?
He couldn't believe the horror of what appeared before him, for, kneeling on the dusty ground, his body held up by 2 jagged lances of what seemed to be concrete, stabbed through his meaty shoulders, was the raspy, breathing form of Rapagendo.
Tsugarame-san, we need a medevac here ASAP and tell them to bring Rappa's blood type with them. He needs urgent medical attention and we need your forensics team too.
He heard his best friend relay down the phone whilst he watched Taishiro tentatively brush the young brawler's blood-soaked hair away from his heavily bruised face. He was unconscious and...
Wait, there's something around his neck.
He breathed, his body floating to the man who the BMI hero was carefully checking over through tear-quivered eyes, whilst Hound Dog continued to look for trails to follow as Marai passed on more information to the police force.
It's a sign.
He blinked, his fat gum sniffed, and looked to his partner's chest where a plaque hung, the word painted on the 2x4, written in English.
What does it say? Liberation.
He breathed, his frown darkening as he stood, his cape billowing around him in the near darkness of a hell that seemed all the more real to him now. Shit! Could this be... Was this the work of the long-dead Destro's followers?